become clear, I think, to all of us present here, is that between yesterday and today, we have seen that women, in times of conflict, in times of unrest, they bear the brunt. They are the victims. They are the vulnerable group, women and children. What has also become clear, I think, in these past 2 days, is that women have made a difference from Nuremberg up to now, and they will continue to make a difference. We continue to call on the international community, do something, let us do something for women in these times. But I think the international community starts with each and every one of us, whether we are prosecutors, whether we are in civil society, whether we are mothers at home, whether we are teachers in school. It starts with us. And if we all pull together, we will be able to do something collectively. The victims in these times of unrest call out to us. They cry out for help. And I think we should answer to that call. Not because we are prosecutors, not because we are investigators, but because we are women, because we are men also. We should be able to heed to that call and to be able to rise up to the challenge that faces us constantly, not just from Nuremberg, but even before Nuremberg, to the current day. Women continue to suffer. We have to put a stop to this. I think we gather year in, year out, and we talk about this, and we make declarations. But in the end, it is the actions that we take that will help to solve these particular problems that we are faced with. It is not easy on societies. It breaks down societies. It is not easy on families. It is not easy on the victims. But they're vulnerable, and they call out, and we should always be ready. We should always be able to help in whatever way that we can. Nothing is small. Every small action can be helpful, can be useful. I think it took Lemkin, one person, for the Genocide Convention to be enacted. He was one person. If every one of us has that resolve and that will, collectively we can together. If this Lemkin as one person could do it, I think together we can also do it. There is no rule to say failure. We have to do what we have to do. Thank you.
As we enter the 21st century, and we entered the 21st century, a new 21st century on 11 September 2001, the world shifted slightly. The current or the past president of the United States said that the rules have changed. I would, as we finish signing the declaration, caution all of us and the world that the rule of law has not changed. The rule of law is the cornerstone by which we get through times of strife. The rules have not changed. The Geneva Conventions, where we recognize the 60th anniversary thereof, still remain valid, relevant, and important. I caution that there has been, as the century begins, a shifting away from the laws of armed conflict to some horrific results. The recent strife in Gaza, where both sides clearly ignored the laws of armed conflict, is a clarion call for those of us who hold the Geneva Conventions and all other international humanitarian law dear to our hearts to monitor and to hold fast to the principles that were laid down 60 years ago this year. Because of this shift away from the laws of armed conflict, we see the increase, if there can be such an increase, of violence against women and children, who are always at risk during armed conflict. We're also honoring the role of women in international criminal law from Nuremberg to the International Criminal Court. I would just like to highlight a vignette in honor of all of the women who have worked so hard. When we were drafting the opening statement against the Revolutionary United Front, I used as a policy, and Joseph Kamara was one of those part of that policy, I asked I would give the first half of the opening statement, and then I would ask a barrister from Sierra Leone to give the second half of the statement. I outlined the general charges and the gravamen of the offenses, and then they would talk more specifically about the charges. And I can recall sitting around in our conference room the Saturday before we were going to give the opening statement against the infamous Revolutionary United Front. And Boytai Stevens, who one of the brave women in my office, was asked to give the second half of the opening statement. And we were sitting around with several of us, senior members of the Office of the Prosecutor, and we were rereading the opening statement to make sure that we had it right and making sure we had the timing, etc. right. And I recall I finished my portion, and then Boytai Stevens began to give her portion of the opening statement, and she was reading through a particularly gruesome episode of which you had some hint at the massacre in Duma by Leslie Taylor this morning. And as she got about halfway through it, she just excuse me. She put her head down and just wept. And that just shows the dedication of women and men who work so hard every day to seek justice. I also honor my mentor and friend, Henry T. King, who pounded this table last year, who pounded the table 2 years ago and said, "The spirit of Nuremberg lives." It still does. And he's still here. He's here in all of us. He lives in all of us. And remember, he always told us, he would point his finger, crooked from age and arthritis, and he would go, "Reach for the stars." Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us today and over the last 2 days. None of the achievements that we have been talking about in international criminal law, the progress in advancing rights of women, achieving justice for women, would be possible without the very hard and dedicated work of these prosecutors. So as we conclude today, please join me in thanking them for being with us, for this declaration, and for the work that they do in the cause of international justice. And that concludes our ceremony this afternoon. Thank you very much.